"We're moving on Taylor," the senior agent ordered. "He may be armed," he told the agents. "Proceed as if he is." He assigned Nielsen and Bugliarello to surveil the far side of the barn in case Taylor tried to get out some other way. Powierzchnik, Katz, and I were going in the door that Taylor had entered. "You okay with this?" I asked Powierzchnik. "Going in after him now?" "It's already been decided," he said in a tight voice. So we moved forward, toward the barn door. Queen continued to play loudly in the barn. This was a strange feeling, all of it. The Bureau had excellent resources for getting information. Their personnel were certainly book-smart and well-trained, but in the past I'd always known and trusted those I went into a dangerous crime scene with. The wooden barn door hadn't been latched or locked by Taylor. We could see that as we crouched in tall brush a few yards away. Suddenly, the music stopped. Then I heard loud voices inside. More than one. But I couldn't make out what was being said or who was doing the talking. "We should take him down. Now," I whispered to Powierzchnik. "We're already committed. We have to go." "Don't tell me." "I ain't telling you," I said. I wanted to take over from Powierzchnik. He was hesitating much too long. Once we had moved so close to the barn, we shouldn't have stopped. "I'll go first. Come in behind me," I finally said. Powierzchnik didn't overrule me, didn't argue. Katz didn't say a word. I ran very quickly toward the barn, my gun out of my holster. I was there in seconds. The door made a heavy creaking sound when I pulled it open. Bright light escaped outside, splintering into my eyes for a second. "FBI!" I yelled at the top of my voice. "FBI!" Jesus. Taylor looked at me, and his eyes filled with surprise, fear. I had a clear shot at him. He'd had no idea he was being followed. He'd been operating in his own private safety zone, hadn't he? I could see that now. I could also make out someone else in the shadows of the barn. He was tied with leather bindings to a wooden post attached to a beam in the hayloft. He had no clothes on. Nothing. His chest and genitals were bloodied. But Francis Deegan was alive. "You're under arrest, Mr. Potter." Chapter 76. The first interview with Potter took place in his small library in the farmhouse. It was cozy and tastefully furnished, and gave no hint of the horrible acts going on elsewhere on the property. Potter sat on a dark wooden bench with his wrists handcuffed in front of him. His dark eyes boiled over in anger directed at me. I sat in a straight-backed chair directly across from him. For a long moment we glared at each other. Then I let my eyes wander around the room. Bookcases and cabinets had been custom-built and covered every wall. A large oak desk held a computer and printer, as well as wooden in-and-out boxes and stacks of ungraded papers. A green wooden sign behind the desk read, "Bless this mess." There was no hint of the real Taylor, or Potter, anywhere. I noticed authors' names on the spines of the books: Richard Russo, Jamaica Kincaid, Zadie Smith, Martin Amis, Stanley Kunitz. It was rumored that the Bureau often had an incredible amount of information on a subject before an interview was conducted. This was true with Taylor. I already knew about his boyhood spent in Iowa, then his years as a student at Iowa and NYU. No one had suspected he had a dark side. He had been up for promotion and tenure this year, and had been working to finish a book on Milton's Paradise Lost, as well as an article on John Donne. Drafts of the literary projects were laid out on the desk. I got up and looked through the pages. He's organized. He compartmentalizes beautifully, I was thinking. "Interesting stuff," I said.
"Be careful with those."
"Oh, sorry. I'll be careful," I said, as if anything he had written about Milton or Donne mattered anymore. I continued to look through his books. The OED, the Riverside Shakespeare, Shakespeare and Milton Quarterlies, Gravity's Rainbow, a Merck manual.
"This interrogation is illegal. You must know that. I want to see my lawyer,"
he said, as I sat down again.
"I demand it."
"Oh, we're just talking," I said. "This is only an interview. We're waiting for a lawyer to get here. Just getting to know you."
Has my lawyer been called? Ralph Guild in Boston? Tell me, don't fuck with me.
"As far as I know. Let's see, we busted you at around 8 a.m. He was called at 8:30. Taylor looked at his watch. His dark eyes blazed.
It's only 12:30 now.
I shrugged. "Well, no wonder your lawyer isn't here yet. You haven't even been apprehended. So you teach English Lit, right? I liked literature in school, read a lot, still do, but I loved the sciences." Taylor continued to glare at me.
You forget that Francis was taken to the hospital. The time is on the record.
I snapped my fingers and winced. Right. Of course it is. He was picked up at a little past 9. I signed the form myself. I have a doctorate, like yourself, in psychology, from Johns Hopkins, down in Baltimore. Homer Taylor rocked back and forth on the bench. He shook his head.
You don't scare me, you fucking asshole. I can't be intimidated by little people like you. Trust me, I doubt you have a Ph.D., maybe from Alcorn State or Jackson State.
I ignored the baiting. Did you kill Benjamin Coffey? I think you did. We'll start looking for the body a little later this morning. Why don't you save us the trouble? Taylor finally smiled.
Save you the trouble? Why would I do that?
I actually have a pretty good answer. Because you're going to need my help later on.
Well then, I'll save you some trouble later on, after you help me.
Taylor smirked.
What are you? The FBI's idea of affirmative action?
I smiled. No, actually, I'm your last chance. You'd better take it. Chapter 77. The library in the farmhouse was empty except for Potter and I. He was handcuffed, totally cool and unafraid, glaring menacingly.
I want my lawyer.
I'll bet you do. I would if I were you. I'd be making a real scene in here. Taylor finally smiled. His teeth were badly stained.
How about a cigarette? Give me something.
I gave him one. I even lit it for him. Where did you bury Benjamin Coffey?
So, you're really the one in charge? Interesting. The world turns, doesn't it? The worm, too.
I ignored his question. Where is Benjamin Coffey? Is he buried out here? I'm sure he is.
Then why ask, if you already know the answer?
Because I don't want to waste time digging up these fields or dredging the pond over there.
I really can't help you. I don't know a Benjamin Coffey. Of course, Francis was here of his own free will. He hated it at Holy Cross. The Jesuits don't like us. Well, some of the priests don't.
The Jesuits don't like who? Who else is involved with you?
You're actually funny for a police drone. I like a bit of dry humor now and then.
I stretched my leg out, struck his chest, and knocked his bench over. He hit the floor hard, banged his head. I could see that it shook him, surprised him anyway. Must have hurt at least a little bit.
That's supposed to scare me?
He asked, once he'd gotten his breath. He was angry now, red-faced, the veins in his neck pulsing. That was a start.
I want my lawyer. I'm explicitly asking you for a lawyer. Lawyer! 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 Can anyone hear me?
Taylor kept yelling at me for over an hour, like some sociopathic kid who wasn't getting his way. I let him scream and curse until he started to get hoarse. I even went outside and stretched my legs, drank some coffee, chatted with Charlie Powiesnik, who was a pretty good guy. When I came back inside, Potter looked changed. He'd had time to think about everything that had happened at the farm. He knew that we were talking to Francis Deegan and that we'd find Benjamin Coffey, too. Maybe a few others. He sighed out loud.
I assume we can make some sort of arrangement to my liking, mutually beneficial.
I nodded. I'm sure we can make an arrangement. But I need something concrete in return. How did you get the boys? How did it work? That's what I need to hear from you. I waited for him to answer. Several minutes passed.
I'll tell you where Benjamin is.
You'll tell me that, too. I waited some more. Took another turn outside with Charlie. Came back to the study.
I bought the boys from the Wolf. But you'll be sorry you asked. So will I, probably. He'll make both of us pay. In my humble opinion, and remember, this is just a college professor talking, the Wolf is the most dangerous man alive. He's Russian, Red Mafia.
Where do we find the Wolf? How do you contact him?
I don't know where he is. Nobody does. He's a mystery man. That's his thing, his trademark. I think it turns him on.
It took several more hours of talking, bargaining, and negotiating. But Potter finally told me some of what I wanted to know about the Wolf, this Russian mystery man who impressed him so. Late in the day, I wrote in my notes, "This makes no sense yet. None of it does, really. The Wolf scheme seems insane. Is it?" Then I wrote my final thought, at least for the moment. The brilliance of it may be that it makes no sense. To us. To me. Part 4. Inside the Den. Chapter 78. Stacy Pollock was a solemn and commanding presence in front of the room full of agents gathered on the 5th floor of the Hoover Building. It was standing room only for her meeting. I was one of those standing in the back, but just about everybody knew who I was after our New Hampshire success bringing in Potter. We had rescued another captive. Francis Deegan was going to be fine. We'd also found the bodies of Benjamin Coffey and 2 other males, unidentified so far. Unaccustomed as I am to having things go our way, Pollock began, and got a laugh. I'll take this latest development and offer humble thanks to the powers that be. This is a very good break for us. As many of you know, the Wolf has been a key target on our Red Mafia list, probably the key target. He's rumored to be into everything: weapons sales, extortion, sports fixing, prostitution, the white slave market. His name seems to be Pasha Sorokin, and he seems to have learned his trade on the outskirts of Moscow. I say seems, because nothing is a sure thing when it comes to this guy. Somehow he maneuvered his way into the KGB, where he lasted 3 years. He then became a Pakan, a boss in the Russian underworld, but decided to emigrate to America, where he completely disappeared. We actually believed that he was dead for a while. Apparently not, at least if we could believe Mr. Potter. Can we believe him? Pollock gestured in my direction. This is Agent Alex Cross, by the way. He helped with the takedown in New Hampshire. I think we can believe Potter, I said. He knows that we need him. He definitely understands what he has to offer us, a possible lead to Sorokin. He also warned me that the Wolf will come after us. His mission is to be the top gangster in the world. According to Potter, that's what the Wolf is. So why the white slave market? One of the ASACs asked. There's not much money in it. It's risky. What's the point? Sounds like bullshit to me. Maybe we've been had. We don't know why he acts the way he does. It's troubling, I agree. Maybe it's his roots, his patterns. An agent from the New York office's Russia group said. He always had his fingers in whatever he could. It goes back to his days on the streets of Moscow. Also, the Wolf likes women himself. He's kinky. I don't think he likes them, said a woman agent from D.C. Honestly, Jeff. The New York agent continued. There's a rumor that he walked into a club in Brighton Beach a couple of weeks ago and wasted one of his ex-wives. That's his style. He once sold 2 of his female cousins from the home country on the slave market. The thing to remember about Pasha Sorokin is that he has no fears. He expected to die young in Russia. He's surprised that he's still alive. He likes it on the edge. Stacy Pollock took the floor again. Let me tell you a couple of other stories to give you a sense of who we're dealing with. It seems that Pasha manipulated the CIA